Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Brand, Sweat, and Tears podcast. I'm your host, Dave Oldham. On this podcast, I talk to consumer product creators, the innovators, inventors, designers, and builders that are making wicked cool products. We talk about the why behind their big idea, the combination of hard work, luck, and timing that help them bring it to life, and the emotional and psychological roller coaster along the way. Let's get to it. Okay, everybody. I am here today with Zach Frantz, who is the CEO and founder of Wildland Coffee. And Zach and I actually met, I'm not sure how long ago. I should have done some math before we started.
2013.
Oh, wow. Okay. 2013, 10 years ago. Zach and I worked together and we were working at a tech company, and Zach was in sales. And we've stayed connected ever since. It's been a long time ago. And at some point in that last 10 years, Zach got this crazy idea to start a coffee company. So that's where we're going to start. And I want you to kind of tell the origin story of Wildland Coffee. How did it come about? Why did you decide to do it? What was the motivation? And then I'm probably going to riddle you with 1,000 questions as we go.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, Dave, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. So, Wildland Coffee started about 4 years ago. I was living, like you just said, I was living in Utah, and I was camping a lot. And I was sick of using my French press when I was camping. I'm a pretty lazy person in many respects, and using a French press was just way too much for me.
You
It
were
was
packing it around with you camping.
Yeah, like you're sitting in the woods, you're trying to relax, and you're like cleaning this French press. There's grounds everywhere. You're wasting water, and I just thought this is kind of a dumb problem to have. And outside of instant coffee, I had never seen a good solution for it. Now I love coffee. I don't know if I love it or if I'm addicted to it. It's sometimes those two
Hard.
things get blurred, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a frequent consumer of coffee. Let's put it that way. And
Quick
outside
question.
of
Is it the
instant
taste? Is it the caffeine? Is it both? Like, why do you think
Well,
you love
it's
it so much?
definitely, well, I'll get into the taste thing in a second, but
Okay.
I would say it was the caffeine for sure, but it's also like a nice ritual. Like you wake up, you make yourself a cup of coffee. So it's a very kind of like nice way to wake up.
Right. So it wouldn't be the same to just take like a caffeine shot or something, right? It's
No,
not
no, no, no,
just
no.
about that.
It's not
There's this
purely
experience.
utilitarian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So I'm camping and I'm just like, this is a really dumb problem to have. And I think, and I started my first business when I was 9. So like, I'm always like seeing problems and trying to think of solutions.
What was
And I
the
thought, well,
business?
what?
What was the business?
It was actually, so when I was really little, I would always make cakes with my mom. And so I made a website on Yahoo GeoCities, which I'm pretty sure was like the first drag and drop website builder ever. This was obvious. This is in
Yeah, GeoCities.
1999.
There's a lot of people who hear this who won't even remember
Yeah,
that,
they'll
but
be
I'm
like,
old enough to remember that. Yeah.
yeah. So like I made a website on Yahoo GeoCities where someone could order a cake through my website. There was no payment processing, but they could actually put like the size, like what they wanted, like written on it, like the kind of cake. No one ever ordered a cake, obviously. I think my neighbor ordered a cake. It was $9 for a homemade cake, and then
Nice.
the $50 that my mom gave me, the seed investment ended. It ran out, and I had
So
to
you
declare
made one
bankruptcy.
cake?
I made one cake. Yeah, my cost of
Nice.
acquisition was like too high, and so I had to shut it down. But back to like the forest in Utah. So I'm thinking, okay, well, like tea comes into a tea bag. Like, why not just put coffee into a tea bag? It's You're moving, like the basic premise of making coffee is you're moving hot water through beans in some way, shape, or form. So like, like that just made it was so obvious to me, right? Now, in that moment, this is really important. In that moment, I had never seen anything like it. So I was like, I am the smartest motherfucker in the world.
I'm
I was like,
inventing something brand new
I
that's
am like
never
going to
existed.
be the Steve Jobs of coffee. Like, holy shit. So I went home, literally cloud nine, dude. I'm like, I'm gonna change the world. Like, this is gonna be a big thing.
So pumped.
Yeah, I went home and I Googled it. Not that smart. Um, Folgers has
But
done
what's
has
what's
had
interesting about that though is here you are, this avid coffee drinker, and
yeah,
had never been exposed to this other
yes,
form of making coffee. So maybe you're going to get into that, but I'm curious, like, why do you think you'd never even heard of it before when it actually did already exist?
right. So like that's the thing. So I was like, okay, this does exist, but I had never heard about it, or I've never seen it. So that means millions of other people have never seen it. Now, being a dumb entrepreneur, I thought that was a good thing. It's actually not a good thing in many ways. Well, we can get into that.
Okay.
Um, so I had never seen it, and actually Folgers had done a really similar product for like 50 years. So I ordered the competitors like Folgers, and there were other ones that were more similar to the one that I ended up bringing to market. And there was a couple things. One, the taste was fine. They weren't good, they weren't bad. They were just kind of like middle of the road. But the more important thing, in my opinion, was the branding. I thought, these other coffee companies that are doing this, like they're just very generic. Like it's just like a lot of coffee shops. It's just like a coffee shop, right? They're not for a specific person or a specific use case. And so I felt like if I niched down and made the product for a very specific person in like a very specific context, I could break through the noise of all the other coffee brands. So
Mhm.
that's what I did. So yeah, that's like the origin story.
Well, so how did you decide what niche to go after, or like what was your focus? What motivated that?
So if you think about coffee, it's very ritualistic and people are deeply committed to those rituals. The other thing is that when you're making coffee at home, most people are incredibly price sensitive. Like the only person that I know that actually figures out how much a cup of coffee costs at home is my sister. And she's a psycho when it comes to like money. She's like, okay, like
She
we buy
knows
the stuff.
she knows the numbers.
Yeah, she's like, we buy the tin from Costco and it costs us, 4 cents per cup. I'm like, you're a weirdo. Like, so so people are like very like price sensitive when they're making coffee at home and they have their ritual and it's very difficult to get people to move off that ritual. But when you're camping or you're outdoors, you don't have your normal routine. You're willing to pay for convenience and there are no great solutions. So I kind of made the bet that if you could make it for this specific thing, you could overcome a lot of those challenges. Which
Okay,
to
that specific thing is campers, you know, people who are outdoorsy adventurists, people who aren't going through that ritual in the confines of their home environment. For people who are out on the move, on the go, on the run, you saw an opportunity,
yeah,
and that opportunity was coupled with the fact that they would pay a little bit more for the convenience
yeah.
of doing it. The taste, it probably had to be, I mean, it still had to taste good, but maybe didn't have to be. I mean, I know have drank, is that the right one? I've drunk and eaten stuff when I was camping that, felt like it almost would kill me. But you're super flexible when you're out camping and out on the, in the wilderness and stuff. And so maybe the taste isn't the absolute most important thing. You
Well,
saw an opportunity there.
yeah, I mean, with any like new like food product, like it has to be good. Now, the thing with coffee is people have so many like preferences are so unique. It's very hard to say, especially with coffee, like what's objectively good or what's objectively bad.
Yeah.
Um,
Just like, are you Coke or Pepsi? I mean, there's no
yeah, it's like
objectivity there. It's personal. It's just what you
yeah, I
like.
mean, millions of people eat McDonald's every day, and you could say it's pretty objectively shitty food. But
Yeah.
like millions of people eat it and they love it. So whatever.
Yeah. That's a great example. Fast food is way more about convenience than just the pure taste, right?
Right.
Although my kids would argue that that's the best tasting food on the planet, but I
Yeah,
think
I
they've
mean,
just been
they
brainwashed.
do have some tricks to make your stuff taste good. Yeah, so we identified the niche, and it was where can we, in the easiest way possible, get people to switch um, an existing habit, basically.
Okay, so you had this theory. Did you test it? Did you go out and like talk to hundreds of people that were campers and outdoorsmen? Like, how did you start to validate? Because you came home thinking, I'm inventing something that's never existed before. You do a Google search, you see that it already exists, but you still decided to do it. How did you validate that you still thought it was like a good idea?
Honestly, like I figured I had this problem, enough other people have the problem too.
Okay,
That
so it was a
and
guess. I mean, you're kind of
it was a
guessing.
guess.
I mean, it seems like an educated guess, right? But you're like,
Yeah.
hey, if I have this and I see tons of other people out there doing this thing, nobody else has come up with a brilliant solution. I think there's enough that you're willing to take a swing at it.
Yeah. And so like long story short, we like actually found a manufacturer that like makes this product. And their minimums weren't that high. So I can't remember like what the exact number was. I think we got like our first run done for like I think it was like 5 grand or something. Maybe it was even less. So, we like bought the product and this was
When you say
2000.
we,
So, okay, I'm skipping some parts of the story here.
okay.
So, I'm kind of combining two businesses into one story. So I've actually the story I'm telling you is actually before my first coffee brand. It was that one was called Highside Coffee. I started with a business partner.
Okay.
A year after that, I ended up leaving that business because it didn't work out between the two of us, and I started Wildland. The product is, I mean, it's the same product. It's
Same
just like
idea. Okay.
it's yeah, it's actually like it's the same thing, but it's just a different brand. Um,
Okay.
so I
Does the other
started
one
that
still
first.
exist or the other one just shut
mm,
down and then you just
I
went
don't
on
think
your
they
own?
ever really did anything with it after I left.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so small details, it's still all true. So yeah, that was like that first coffee brand. I
Hmm.
started with a business partner. We started doing advertising on Facebook. We actually started that right before the pandemic, March or October of 2019.
Hmm.
So we acquired our first customers through like Facebook ads uh, and Instagram ads, pretty much.
Just paying them out of your own pocket, the ad dollars, the
Yeah,
ad
so
spend.
I put like $40,000 in that business. Um,
Wait,
and
40,000?
mhm,
Nice. So, I mean, was this savings, like friends and
mhm.
family? Did anybody else jump in? Or this is just like, hey, this is my savings. I believe enough in this idea. I'm willing to bet 40 grand on this idea.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. I still had a software job at the time.
Okay. So you had some money stashed away, doing your day job. You're like, okay,
Yeah,
but I'm willing, I believe in this enough. I'm doing this.
yeah, yeah. And it obviously didn't work out. Like it didn't work out in a couple of ways. One, like we ran the company like idiots, and two, it didn't work out between the two of us.
Yeah.
So that's why I left the company.
Okay. But in
Um,
retrospect, do you think the $40,000 was a worthwhile education?
yeah, it's cheaper than an MBA.
Okay. So you came out of that, you're like, that didn't work out, but I'm still passionate enough about this idea. I'm doing Wildland. Here we go.
Yeah, and part of it was like he was responsible for like the creative direction, and he was like a big motorcycle guy, and so like he wanted this to be like a motorcycle brand, like a chopper, and like I
Yeah.
hate motorcycles, like I think they're annoying.
So you were
Again, like
more
that was like
camper, the
yeah,
outdoorsman, like that kind of thing. And he was more, let's go for the Harley crowd, the Sturgis
yeah,
crowd.
like let's go, yeah, it, exactly. He wanted to spend like the money on like these really polished videos. And I'm like, dude, like we don't have enough money for this shit. Like we need to focus on revenue today, right? On
Yeah.
profitable, scalable revenue. So again, that there's like a bunch of reasons why it didn't work out. So when I started Wildland, it was about like, okay, this is for people who are camping outdoors. Um, so when I started Wildland, it was very I try I probably went too far in the other direction of like trying to grow it organically through like micro influencers, which like didn't really work. Then we launched on Amazon, um, which we thought would be awesome, and it's been okay, like not amazing. And the thing that we learned on Amazon is when people are searching for like a close substitute to our product, let's say like instant coffee, they're not switching. Like if people go to Amazon, they search instant coffee or whole bean coffee, like they might not know the brand they're going to buy, but they're buying that thing, that category of thing. They're not then going to go buy like a tea bag style coffee. Um, and the organic demand, that was the first moment where it was like, oh shit, like the organic demand for this product is just like not that much. So that was like the first kind of reality check.
Okay, quick
So
question on that. Do
yeah,
you think, or do you know now, or what have you learned since then related to, is it because the pros and cons on tea bag coffee or bagged coffee, the cons kind of outweigh the pros for most people, especially in a home environment? Or was it just a lack of education? Like people just didn't know that was an option?
people just don't even know it's an option.
Okay. So you think like it's just a lot more of an educational thing. They don't know that they can even
Yeah.
do it this way.
Like when I go to events or when I, just talk to people, I'd say this is not even an exaggeration. Like 98% of people are like, I've never even seen this before.
Hmm.
So think of like the taxi world when Uber was maybe 2 or 3 years in. You were taking a taxi, frustrated, but not even knowing that you could search for something else. Like it didn't even rise to the level of consciousness to say like, you know what, I'm gonna go on Google and search
Just see if there's a
taxi
better option.
alternative. Yeah,
Right.
like
Right.
you would
Yeah. Somebody had to
you
tell
you
you
wouldn't
about
even
it.
think you
Yeah.
wouldn't even think to try to solve the problem. Like
Yeah.
that's where most people are at. They
Yeah, I
but
get that. I mean, coffee's been around, and the way of drinking coffee and making coffee,
yeah,
brewing it, has been around for so long that I can see all of us would probably just be stuck in this, like, oh, this is just the way that it is. It's
it's
not
just the
like,
way it
oh,
is.
I'm sure there's got to be a better way, right? It's
No,
okay. So
yeah,
you have this big educational hurdle in front of you, and how have you started to tackle that?
yeah. So all right, so I'll keep going through like the pivots, like the go-to market pivots.
Okay.
So the micro influencer thing didn't work. The Amazon thing works okay. Like we're profitable on Amazon, but at a small scale.
Margins are kind of tight once you
The
pay all
margins
the
are,
Amazon
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
But actually, interestingly enough, even through our website, the margins are roughly the same.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because yeah, like you pay Amazon a referral fee, but the FBA fee, which includes shipping to the customer, is actually less typically than what we pay to ship to the customer.
Okay.
And we include
Especially at that
shipping.
scale, when you're small scale,
Yeah.
right? I mean, your own shipping might be different if you got to like some huge scale, but
Yeah, for
right
sure.
now.
But
Okay.
where we're
That makes
at,
sense.
and I'm of the belief like just be wherever your customers want to buy you. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna tell my customer they
Yeah.
can't buy me on it. Like what the fuck?
Yeah. You
Um,
kind of got to be there.
yeah. Um, so and we're still on Amazon, but it's not taking us to the promised land. So then we started going down the wholesale route, like selling to outdoor stores. Um,
Was that strategic, or it just like somebody reached out to you? Like, how did you head down the wholesale path?
well, I figured, well, if someone's going camping, they're going to a camping store, like might as well be there, right? Maybe it's a point of discovery. So we were, and I say we, I mean it was I'm the only employee. I have some contractors, like some virtual
Hmm.
assistants in the Philippines, but in terms of like U.S. people, it's just me. We were okay at getting into outdoor stores. Like people were generally like pretty excited about it. They were like, "Oh, this is cool." Um, but the challenge is again, like people are not looking for this product. So contextually, in one way, it makes a ton of sense. This is where they're going to be using the product in the camping and the outdoor context. In the other contextual perspective, it makes no sense, which is people are still going to the grocery store to buy food before they go camping. So
Mm.
when you go to a camping
Yeah,
store,
usually
you're
the
like,
camping store isn't like I'm grabbing the food right before I go. It's usually like,
exactly.
I mean, people get last minute camping gear, which I guess so there's still that opportunity, but yeah, mentally they're separating. I get my food for camping here, and then I get my gear
Yeah, like,
here. But I know
like
that
your tent,
the
your gear, whatever.
yeah. But that's the
So
blur. The lines are getting really blurred on that, right? Like last time I was in Shields, there's quite a few food items, right? So they're kind of heading that direction, and vice versa. I mean, the WalMarts and Costco's and everything are as much gear as food. So I think the lines are getting blurred on all of that, right?
cor- correct. Yeah. So we're in, we're actually in Eight Shields right now, not the one in Salt Lake.
Awesome. So
Um,
was that just a cold call, cold outreach?
my best TikTok video ever was me walking into a Shields in I can't remember, one in Montana. I was like on the way back from an event or something, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna walk into Shields, and I put my
So you
phone.
you TikToked it while live streamed it, and you're like,
Well, no,
this
no,
is going to be amazing,
I
or it's
didn't
going to be
live
total
stream it.
rejection.
No, I didn't live stream it, but I put
Okay.
my phone in my pocket, like in my shirt pocket, and I walked in. I was like, hey man, like I own a coffee company. Like I went up to the section that the coffee was in, and I knew from calling other Shields. This wasn't my first time interacting with someone at Shields. I knew that the people at the store can make decisions. That's one thing that's very
Okay.
unique about Shields.
I was going to
One
say, like, do
Shields
they
can
even make
bring in
the
a product.
frontline decisions?
Yeah, they can.
Okay.
Whereas like REI is the complete opposite. Everything's corporate, very, very, very corporate. Shields is
Right.
very like independent.
Cool.
Um, so I walk in, I go to the section that I know I got to ask the guy. I'm like, hey, like I own a coffee company. Like blah, blah. I do the pitch, right? I'm like, I think I knew the guy's name or I just asked like, who would make this decision? He was like, oh yeah, it's this guy named Will. Like, let me go get him. So like Will comes over. I'm filming the whole thing. I'm like, "What's up, Will?" I give him the pitch. He goes, "Oh, dude, this is like really cool. Like we've actually been looking for like a competitor to Black Rifle." So like I give him like some samples. I get his email, and I follow him. And I get in the store. And because of that, I got into like seven more.
Nice. And what was
And
their first order? Did they give you like a minimum that you had to show up with?
it was like $200. No, I think they ordered $400. Like pretty
Okay.
small.
Okay.
So like that's one of the problems is we're okay. I'd say we're more than okay at getting into stores, but our reorder rate is just like not that. It's just not that great. Again, because people aren't looking for it, they don't know about it. So and there's
If
not
they
that many
walk
outdoor
past
stores.
it, if they stumble upon it, maybe they're grabbing it, but it's hard to get
But
promoted amongst all that, a million other
it
products.
right. So like let's just say, and I don't know the exact number, but like let's say there's 1,000 outdoor stores in the US, which is actually probably, I guess if you count Walmart, like where I'm not counting like Walmart as like an outdoor store. I'm like specific like outdoor stores. There's probably like 1,000, maybe 1,500. Even if let's say you sold $2,000 a year at each store, which would be absolutely crushing it. That's only a that's like a $3.5 million business,
Hmm.
but $3 million business. So
Yeah.
you have to be murdering it to even have a $3 million business.
Yeah.
Like the numbers are just not there.
Okay.
So
But this is
so
like you learned this, you realize this, like, we're into it a couple years now or something, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, so what do I do now?
yeah. So around this time, I'm thinking, okay, this is not working. Like around this time, I meet up with a mentor of mine, someone who's been a mentor of mine since college, and he's a CEO of a packaging company. So his perspective on things is like very different. He's like pretty old school, just like margins, like he's just he doesn't care about like TikTok.
Yeah.
Um, he's like, you need to do the manufacturing. Like he's like, your margins suck. You need to do the manufacturing. And I had thought about it, but like the company I did the manufacturing with, like I knew that their machines were like a couple $100,000 each. I was like, dude, like that's like, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
And he goes, just Google it. Like maybe there's someone who does it cheaper, like less than a couple $100,000. And I was like, okay, whatever, dude. So I Google it, and like I found some companies. They're still like expensive, but not $200,000 expensive. So we actually ended up buying a machine to do the manufacturing ourselves, primarily to improve our margins.
Mm-hmm.
As we started to do the manufacturing, and all these other facts are starting to like smash me in the head, I'm like, okay, hold on. What if we go to hotels? Like now we're doing the manufacturing, like we can sell it to hotels at like a good price that they'll buy at, because for the in-room coffee, you have to be like pretty competitive because they're just giving it away.
Yeah.
But I figured if you could give it away, that solves your problem, because people, they don't have to look for it.
Solves the education problem, right? It's like, oh my gosh, right? So, and being in a hotel does give you really broad exposure to a large number of people. The turnover, it's like a couple of, in a single hotel, hundreds or thousands of people on a daily basis are getting exposed to your new product, right? But let me ask you this huge question. When we go back to the pros and cons at the very beginning, now we're back to kind of ritual and taste and other things being important, because you're in more a similar environment to like being at home. Obviously you don't have your $5,000 espresso machine or whatever. You've got the crappy hotel, coffee maker. But as far as the product is go, you're up against, do you lose some of the advantages of bagged coffee versus the other form, or is it the speed? Or what were the pros of being able to still compete in a hotel environment in that format?
So really, like, it was a couple things. So for the hotels, the thesis, and I'll get to why this was actually, again, wrong. Like I've been wrong so many times. Like I feel like eventually I have to be right about something, right?
Just the odds are in your favor now to be right eventually.
Trying, like broken clock is right twice a day, right? Like I'm still right at the broken part. So okay, I had this thesis that certain hotels would want to do something different, would want to get rid of their coffee machines, and that would value like quality over like Keurigs and like the environmental play. So I was kind of like banking on like those three things.
Okay.
So we started, this is where I hired a virtual assistant to just like call hotels and like basically just ask for like the information for the right person. And over the course of like 6 months, we called, I don't know, thousands. We sent out like 300 samples to people who were like, oh yeah, like that sounds cool. That's interesting. We landed like 2 clients. Like
out of like 300 samples.
Out of like 300 samples. Wow. And I would say like 75% of those people just straight ghosted us.
Wow.
Like straight ghosted, dude. So I think really like what happens with the hotel thing is hotels have so many things to worry about. Like no one's complaining about the in-room coffee. And we all know as business owners, if you're not complaining about something,
that's not the biggest fire they've got to put out, right?
It's like they're dealing with like inflation and employees leaving and all this stuff, right? And it's like different in-room coffee, like, like.
Yeah. Is it going to increase the number of people that come and stay there? Probably not. So yeah, why change? They're just going with whatever's most convenient or whatever's easiest. Yeah.
Now we did get some like feedback about the product that led us to we haven't made the changes yet, but we did some R&D around like developing like a version 2 of the product. So I wouldn't say it was like a total waste of time, and we do have like some hotel clients, but not like what I thought it was going to be. The nice thing is you can get in hotels, the volume is just insane. The volume is insane, and they just keep ordering. It's like,
and have you seen any uptick in direct orders after from the exposure? Like, okay, people are getting educated?
No.
Not really. Okay.
No. That's like, in my view, you get in hotels for the revenue. It's not like a marketing.
It wasn't
it's like,
the exposure thing. That didn't play out the way you thought. Okay.
No. And I was never banking on that. It's like, that would be a fringe benefit, But the real benefit is, you know, you have hotels, even a small hotel will order $15,000 a year and you never talk to them. They just call you and order more.
Yeah, just
Like,
automatic. Yeah.
like it's awesome if you can get in. Um, so,
So are you still pursuing that as like one of your many strategies? Just because, like you said, like if you can get in, it's gravy, but or is it just too much effort to try and crack down those doors?
yeah, I mean, as of right now, we're not doing too much with it because it wasn't worth it. And as a really small company, basically by myself with, some help of like some contractors, it's just you got to focus right on where you think you're going to win.
Yeah.
So, so, so now it's kind of comes to like the current part of the story, which is, um, we're starting to do some co-packing for other coffee companies that want their coffee in this format. And then we're also going to be launching some brands for influencers pretty soon.
Okay,
So
talk to me about that. Brands for influencers. So
yeah, so there's one,
Kim
um,
Kardashian called you and said, "Hey, I want to
yeah,
put my face on some coffee."
that would be awesome. Um, so nothing signed yet, but we're talking to one chick who like lives in her van, and she's pretty big on YouTube. There's like a really good story there around like the use case. Wildland would be completely on the back end, like no one's gonna know it's us. Again, I'm pretty sure it's gonna happen, but like we'll see.
Nice. So you're kind
Um,
of going for a circle back to the nomads, the campers, the outdoorsy
yeah,
people,
I
but
still
now
believe
you've
that that's
got
the best
these
use case.
influencers, and instead of trying to leverage influencers to sell Wildland coffee, you're saying, I'm going to manufacture this for you and you can slap your name on it and then we'll both make some money from it.
So we have a full turnkey solution where we have people who will do the branding, will build the website, the logo, we'll do your packaging, we'll produce the product, we'll kit the product, we'll ship the product, we'll do returns. If you want, we'll do your customer service,
Oh, that's
and then we'll
awesome.
just like, or and then we'll just like send you a check,
Yeah.
basically, or you send us a check depending on
Yeah.
the
How you work
all
it
the
out.
details,
Yeah.
right? Um, there's another couple that I think we're actually going to do a co-branded piece with, and actually he's he's disabled, like he can't walk, and he has limited mobility in his arms. Um, and him and his wife, between all their social properties, have about 2 million followers.
Wow.
And so I think there's going to be a cool story around, it's like an easy way to make coffee. And like they love coffee. They talk about coffee on their channel a lot. And so I think, there's going to be like a cool story there.
That's
And then
awesome.
there's another woman that we're working with that's a big, she's just like a mom influencer pretty much. And it's going to be like the story is going to be like not before my coffee pretty much. And how, you're a busy mom, you're running around. Um,
I like it.
so, we're like kind of betting the future of the company on like this co-packing thing and this influencer thing. Um,
Okay. So we're all through that entire journey where
yeah,
you've arrived, which is cool. I mean, this is awesome hearing all this, is that you can be a white label manufacturer and supplier for these various types of individuals or groups or whatever that get the full advantage of what the original value proposition was, like that the flexibility, the ease of use, the travel, the nomad kind of travel, whatever kind of thing. Or even if they are at home, like the mom blogger, none of the big traditional brands are interested in manufacturing for some mommy blogger, even if they've got a big thing. They're just
yeah,
not set up to do it that way, right? So you've got the flexibility to say, hey, you want to have your own coffee brand? You've got a big enough audience that you can have your own coffee brand, and that gives you can go pretty far down that long tail. Even with micro influencers, once you've got that process established, self-serve, like, hey, if I want to have my own coffee brand and I'm selling it to like 50 of my buddies a year, but I want to do it, like,
sure.
like, right, I mean, to you at some point it doesn't matter, right? Like the micro of the microest influencers, or if some company wanted to, like an outdoors company or something, wanted to like sell their own coffee, but they didn't want to go through the process of like trying to work through like the huge brands or whatever, there's a good solution
Yeah,
for them to easily slap their brand on it. That's interesting.
yeah. So if you think about kind of like what I've been trying to do for the last, call it 4 years, is how do you bring a product to scale or bring a product to market at scale when you don't have millions of dollars to spend on marketing? That's basically it, right?
Yeah,
And
that was going to be my question. So I'm glad we're getting there.
yeah,
This is a great
uh,
place to kind of end this
and
story, right?
and for Wildland, it's just not through the Wildland brand. But because we're the manufacturer, like we can leverage and work with other people who are uniquely positioned to overcome these challenges. So if you think about coffee shops or coffee companies, right? It could be a shop or online, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's built-in trust. They already have emails. They've got customers, um, and they can, sell additional products, to their existing customers, right? That's kind of like the most obvious one. If we think about the influencer thing, I really think like the future of commerce is through influencers, right? People that already have audiences because cost of acquisition is through the roof,
Mm-hmm.
and trust in traditional advertising is at an all-time low.
Mm-hmm.
But these influencers for the last 10 years, right, they've just been pimping other companies' brands. It's like, you get $1,000 for a post or 5,000 or, 100,000 if you're massive, right? But they're slowly getting sick of that and they want to own something right? They don't just want to like get a one-time check and then be searching for the next check and then be searching for the next check.
Yeah.
Um, and because they have built-in trust, they have a built-in audience, they don't necessarily have to pay Facebook $70 per acquisition, like for a customer. Like you just
Mm-hmm.
post about your shit on your page.
Yeah.
And my competitors are just like not doing this
Yeah.
for a variety of reasons. There's a couple, but um, I,
Was that a tough emotional? Was there any emotion at all attached to kind of giving up the Wildland brand and sort of being the behind the scenes, or did you feel like as an artist suddenly you were, or any emotional attachment at all?
you know, uh,
You were just more pragmatic about like, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to make this business grow and scale. And if I have to give up the brand name or it being like hidden, like I don't really care. That wasn't a hard decision.
there was a journey of like, first I was like, okay, is this thing even going to work? And that's hard. Like, am I gonna have to like go get a job again? Like that's kind of tough. But then you step back and you're like, okay, hold on. Like I'm doing this because I'm an entrepreneur. Like if I give up the Wildland thing, that doesn't mean my entrepreneurial career is over. That just means like this thing didn't work. And
Yeah.
not taking it personally, like it's hard to be like, I'm good at what I do, but like this thing just like wasn't the thing.
Yeah.
Right. Um,
But there's a balance, right? Because you could probably throw in the towel a lot earlier than you did, justifying it by saying like, hey, I'm a good entrepreneur, this just wasn't the right idea. But there's also this part to like the grit and the persistence, like you've stuck with it probably through maybe 10 different scenarios where other people might just throw in the towel.
well, what happened was I gave myself a time frame. And I said, my company needs to be at X by X. And what happened when I did that, as I said, I have these like 5 ideas and I need to burn through all these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I need to check all these boxes in 6 months.
Okay.
And then you're like, okay, I'm going to execute on all those things. I'm going to give it my effort. I'm going to, hire people, in the Philippines. We're going to do this, like we're going to do that. We're going to test these things. And if I get to the end and none of them work, I
Then
did
you can
everything I
move
could.
on and you're
I
not going
moved
to feel
on.
destroyed. But you
Yeah, it's like,
also, you had those things and you said, I'm not going to walk away from this until I've exhausted these options because that one of these could potentially work. And I'm not going to
right.
walk away with like always wondering like, oh, what if I would have just tried that one last thing?
Yeah. But that's the thing is like there's always one other thing that you can try. There's always one more thing, right? There's
Okay.
always
So
one
the
more
time
day.
frame was another critical thing. Was it had to happen by this point, or mentally you're just like, I'm moving on?
yeah. The other thing is like, I haven't paid myself in a year, and my wife is also like, hey Zach, like you got to pay yourself. So you also are pragmatic. Like
Yeah.
you start a business to make money, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of people in their first business, they're like, oh, I'm going to change the world. Like, fuck off, dude. Like you got to make money. Okay, this
Yeah.
isn't a nonprofit. This isn't .org. It's .com.
Yeah.
And
And I
so
mean, we
like
kind of glossed over it, and maybe we'll have to circle back get you on for a second, a round two here, as you start to go down this influencer path, because it'll be really interesting to see how this starts to pay out. But the thing we kind of glossed over is there are other variables like a spouse or a partner,
yeah,
or kids, or, whatever it is as a creator that you've also got to take into consideration. And part of that, the challenge is, even if you've got people who are really, really supportive in your life, there's also a pressure, I think, that I've felt about at what point is this just like super selfish? Like it's all about me and my pride and, me just doing this thing. So that is this extra challenge. Your wife's like, hey, you've got to get paid at some point. So let's put a time
yeah.
frame on this. Let's agree on like how far are we going to chase this thing before we decide like this isn't the thing.
Yeah, and my wife has been ultra supportive, like crazy support. And she's not asking me to go make 100 grand a year, right? She's like, make 5 grand a month, right?
Just prove that it's kind of working.
Right. Like, hey, like let's just like see the growth. Like
Yeah.
let's okay, cool. Like now we're paying ourselves $1,000 a month. Now 2,000, 3,000. Like, okay, like we're going somewhere, right? But you can't just keep on the hamster wheel. Like
Yeah.
you got to make money. And if you're not making money, just like it, like it is what it is. Like I'm not gonna beat myself up.
Yeah. Well, I know you've got a hard stop, and I'm so grateful for you being on. This has been really cool. I still have like 100 more questions
But we can
that I
do it
want to
again.
ask you, but is there any last thing that you would say, like to this point in time, this entire journey? What's been maybe the most valuable realization, or maybe even the most shocking realization about being a creator trying to bring something to life?
There's so many different ways to make money with a product. It's not just Facebook and Instagram ads. There's a million different channels. There's a million different ways to make money. It doesn't. There's You just have to be open minded and not just like see what other people have done and say, okay, like I'm gonna, if it's a food product, okay, I'm gonna go to the grocery store, then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this. Like you can make money in so many different ways. You just like you have to be open minded to like the possibilities.
Nice. Well, Zach, I definitely will get you back on for a round two, because I think this is just the beginning of a pretty cool story, and I still have all these unanswered questions. But I appreciate you taking the time. I guess we should probably is like, so do you want people who are listening to the podcast, do you want them to go to wildlandcoffee.com? If you're an influencer and you're listening to this, hook up with Zach. How? Through
Yeah.
LinkedIn? Do you want them to email you? Do you want them to reach out to you so that they can slap their face? I mean, I'm pretty
Totally.
sure Kim Kardashian's going to be listening to this podcast.
Pretty.
I'm like
Yeah, for sure.
90% sure. So if she is, how does she get in touch with you to put her face
Yeah.
on some coffee?
So you can check us out at Wildland Coffee. It's a .co, not .com. So you can contact us there. You can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm sure Dave will put my LinkedIn in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put
Or
all the links.
yeah, or you can email us directly.
Awesome. Zach, you're awesome. Can't wait till round two. Thanks for being on. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. See ya.